Hey everyone, and welcome to part 4 of my mini-series, Colorful Second Brain. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at scripting colors with ColorMaster. This is going to be a more technical video. I'm going to be demonstrating the features of the ColorMaster library by way of implementing a couple of simpler and more complicated scripts. My hope is that by the end, you understand what ColorMaster is capable of, as well as you have the basics that you can build on to develop your own Excalidraw scripts that manipulate colors of your drawings. Before diving into the conversation, I want to show you the ColorMaster Readme. I'm going to have the link to this in the video description. ColorMaster comes with a set of built-in functions, as well as lots of what they call plugins. In the Obsidian build, all of the plugins are available, so whatever you see here in the README, you can do in Obsidian as well. We're going to be using this drawing as we go through the process today, and we're going to create two scripts in the end. One is going to be a color gradient. So these scripts right now are empty, but we are going to create them together. One script is going to be about creating a color gradient, first using the RGB color wheel, but later on we're going to convert the script to also create a gradient for the RYB color wheel. And the second script is going to be a script that transforms a drawing and moves all the colors on the drawing to a different position on the color wheel. So in a way to transform the colors of an existing drawing. Whenever I develop script, I open the developer console in Obsidian, and you can access the developer console by pressing Ctrl-Shift-I, or on a Mac, Command-Shift-I. And if you want to access the Excalidraw object, you first need to declare the EA variable. This is a convenience step because I don't want to type Excalidraw automate all the time, so I just type EA. And also when you're using the script engine, you don't need to do this step, as well as you don't need to set the view. So by setting the view, I tell Excalidraw automate that this is the view that I want to manipulate. In the script engine versions, you can skip these two. The script engine will call your script already with the EA object initialized and pointing to your active drawing. Now, to get the very basics, if I have an element on screen and I want to get this object or the object representing this element on the screen, I can write this one-liner, and what this does is it will get the selected element from the view and return the Excalidraw element object. And here you can see that this is a type diamond, and this has a solid feel, and its background color is DDA25A. We can also check, you can see that this is indeed the same object that we are talking about. Now, the way you can create a ColorMaster object is by calling the Excalidraw automate get ColorMaster function. And here you have lots of options for creating a color. We're going to look at multiple options today. One option is simply to take the element and take the background color property. And with this, I've created a ColorMaster object. Now, let's just see what we can do with this ColorMaster object. For example, I can print the color string representing this object in different forms of representation. So for example, if I type string HSL, then I'm going to get the HSLA representation of the color. So this is exactly the same color as the color I have on screen. We can just replace this, but instead of the hexadecimal representation, I get the HSL representation of the color. Also, I can do some simple functions. For example, I can check if the color is a cool color or if the color is dark and so on. So there are some opportunities to check different properties of the color, and you have these nice functions to build logic around it. You can also do different transformations. So for example, I can change the hue of this color. Similarly, I could change the saturation of the color or the lightness, etc., other properties. I can change the hue of the color by, say, 30 degrees by typing in this command. And if I do this, then if I look at the string hexadecimal of this color and I copy this over here, then I'm going to get, instead of this yellow, I think this should be already in the green range. I'm moving along the RGB color wheel, so I moved from the yellowish to the green area. If I move another 60 degrees, let's say, then we should already be in the blue area. So let's just try that. If I copy this color and move it here, this should be a more, okay, so we are still in the strong green area, but let's then take another step forward and see how this looks now. So yeah, so now I've reached the blue. So you can imagine I'm going around the color wheel by changing the hue. The hue is the position of the color on the color wheel. So let's take this knowledge and let's try to create a color gradient for us. And this is going to be a relatively simple script. I'm going to start by creating two constants for myself. So my first constant is going to be the step size. This is in degrees, how big steps I take along the color wheel as I go around. My other constant is going to be my base color that I start from. I want to start from red, so I'm going to type here EA get CM, and I can also just simply type red. So let's just test it out here. So EA get CM red and string hexadecimal. This should be FF0000, and it is indeed. So some of the color names work. Other color names don't work, so you need to be careful with this. So for example, if I would write orange red, then unfortunately ColorMaster doesn't recognize it. I have a function in Excalidraw automate to convert the color name to hexadecimal, and this knows a lot more color names. So I could actually use orange red and convert this to its hexadecimal value. And this way, if I take this line and I combine it with this line here, I can actually get the ColorMaster equivalent, the ColorMaster object for orange red as well. You need to pay a bit of an attention, but basic colors like red, ColorMaster recognizes as well. And once I have these two constants, I'm going to create a for loop, and my I variable is going to run from 0 to 360, and it's going to increase by step size. So we are going to go around the wheel in steps of 30. And at each step, I'm going to set the style of the background color of the Excalidraw automate drawing object to the hexadecimal value of the current ColorMaster object. And then I'm going to add a rectangle with this background color. And the rectangle, X, Y, width and height values are going to be, I'm going to use I as the X value. So then each of the color around the wheel is going to be a color to the right. And the top is always going to be 0. And I'm going to set the width and the height of the object. So the width should be step size, but the height should be 30 high. So even if I change the step size, I still want the same size rectangles. You will see in a moment why. It will just look slightly better. And then as a final step, I want to move the color hue by step size. So for the next iteration, I want the color to be the next color on the color wheel. And when I'm done, then I want to add these elements to the view like this. And it's actually enough. So we are good. And let's just try the script. If I run my script, then here you go. I have my color gradient here. So we can see some things that would be nice to change. So instead of this dashed fill style, maybe it would be better to have solid colors. Also, I think we would want the stroke color to be the same as the background color, and I would also change the slopiness or roughness to architect, so it's a neat line. But of course this is all up to you, but let's just do these simple changes. So I'm going to set the style, and this is going to be the fill style, to solid like this, and I'm going to set the style, the roughness, to 0, which means architect. So this is going to be 0 roughness. And here I'm going to take this and paste it, and instead of background color, I'm going to color the stroke color. Now, if you're unsure about some of these, of course, here, EA style stroke color, so you have a prompt later on, or at any time you can always use the developer console to find out what objects are called. But for now, let's run this, but let's maybe, yeah, let's run this before we change that value. So let me move this down here and let's run our script. So this is our next run of the script. You can see that this now has the stroke color as we wanted, the fill style, etc. So this is good. Now, if I want to have a more detailed gradient, I can change the step size to be smaller. So if I change the step size, for example, to 10 and run my script, then you can see that I have a more smooth gradient here, and I can even go a step further and maybe change this to step size 2, which is really thin. And if I run my gradient like this, then you can see that now it's almost a continuous gradient like this. Building on this, I think the next example I want to do is still playing with the hue and some of the possibilities. I was thinking that we could create a script that would take all of the elements from the view and move their hue by a certain degree. So in a way, transform the entire picture as if you were turning the color wheel and moving all the colors clockwise or anti-clockwise on the color wheel. So let's see how we would do this. We want to get all the elements from the scene. The way I get all the elements from the scene is I'm going to declare this constant called elements, else, and I'm going to take EA get view elements. like this. So this will return me all the elements from the scene. Let me show you here. So EA get view elements. If I run this, then I have 252 elements right now, and that is because, of course, this gradient is consisting of lots of individual rectangles, so we have quite a few elements on the scene already. So I can take all the elements from the scene. If I want to edit these elements and change them on the scene, then I need to copy the elements into the Excalidraw automate object for editing, and I can specify which elements I want to move in. This time I want to move all the elements in, so this is the line, and then I can take all the elements and note that here this was get view elements, and here I don't have a view, so get elements gets all the elements in the Excalidraw automate object, the ones that I'm manipulating, changing. And I'm going to go through each of the elements and do a little transformation. So what's the transformation I want to do? Well, I want to get the stroke color, and this is going to be a ColorMaster object, get ColorMaster, and I want to take the element stroke color for each. Again, if you don't know these properties, you can come here and experiment. I still have the element object from here in the beginning, so that's why I'm able to play with this, but I also know these names by heart for most part. I also create an object for the background color, which is again going to be an ColorMaster object, and this is the background color, like this. And then I want to set the element stroke color to be equal with the stroke color that I transform by, let's say we move this by 30 degrees, so it's a bigger step forward. I want to move it by 30 degrees, and I want to take the string hexadecimal value, and that's going to be the stroke color. And I have exactly the same line here, but this is now going to be the background color, and this is not the stroke color but the background color. So with this, I took all the elements on this scene, I copied them into the Excalidraw automate object, and then I changed their colors. And once I'm done with all of this, then I need to add these elements to the view, and with that I'm going to push these back to the canvas. So let's see how this script works. What I expect to happen, I expect the blue, the green to move this direction. Of course, the red should jump to the other end of the gradient, and overall I want to see a movement to the left as I execute this script. So let's see what happens. So this is my second demo script, and as I click that, then you can see that these colors are moving to the left because I'm repainting the colors following this logic. Now, if I want to apply it to this drawing right here, then I can do that, but I need to pay attention to a couple of things. And so one thing I need to pay attention to is I should also change the background color, and I will look at how you can change the background color in a second. And also that some of the colors, as I mentioned, you hear that the color names don't work. I don't have color names on this drawing, but I have a transparent background. I think this is the object. And also ColorMaster doesn't recognize the word transparent, so you need to be careful with how you handle it. So we'll have a bit of complication in our script to cater for these. But let's first look at how do I get the background color of the canvas and how I can change that. So the background color, so far we've looked at the EA get view elements function that gets all the elements. The canvas itself is not an element. It is part of the state of the canvas. So I need to get the canvas color, I need to access the Excalidraw API and get the background color from the state. So let me just show you how you get there. So I take my Excalidraw automate object and I get the Excalidraw API, and then I get the get application state. And if I just stop here for a second, then this will give me all sorts of parameters about the application state. You can see the color palettes here, as well as you can see the current color that you're using and lots of other interesting pieces of information. But among these are the view background color as well. So if I take this and take the view background color property, that will give me the background color of the view. If I would want to change this, for example, to white, then I could write this, and this is now going to be a bit tricky because I need to set the canvas state. So the way I do this is, again, I get the Excalidraw API and I call the update scene function, and in the update scene function I want to change the app state, and I want to change the app state in a way that I want to change the view background color, and let's say we're going to change the view background color to white like this. And I just need to close this like this, and when I execute this, then the background color turns white. If I want this gray color back, then I can take this and change the background color to gray again, or I can actually choose a different color as well, whatever. So now let's move this into our script. So at the end, when we've added our elements to the view, then we want to do a final step. We first want to get the background color of the view. So I'm going to call this view color, and I'm going to get EA get CM, and I'm just going to get the view background color into my view color variable. And then I want to execute the update scene function, and here I want to take my view color and I want to change the hue by, and let's change it by 30, and I want to take the string hexadecimal value of this, and with this my script should be good. So let's test it first here. When I press this button, then the gray, the tone of the gray should change. Maybe for now I'm actually going to change the background to this brownish yellow color, so the change is more visible. So when I press this button, then you see that the background color is moving as well. So let's see how this works on my book on a page. So let's see if I change the overall color tone, not tone, but the color, all the colors I move around the wheel, how that looks like. It takes a bit of time for the script to run because there are lots of items, but you can see that the colors are transforming, and I wonder, yes. So here's the issue. So the reason this turned black is because I didn't pay attention to what I said earlier, which was the issue with the transparent color. So this color right here in the transformation turned to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and in the end this was understood as black, and so that causes the problem. So let me just add a little additional error handling to our script. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a check, and I'm going to check if the element stroke color to lower case, I think to lower case like this, yes, to lower case does not equal transparent, then we should do this. I check for lowercase because if by any chance transparent is written like this, I still want to catch transparent, but I'm only going to change the stroke color if it is not a transparent value, and I'm going to do the same here, that I'm only going to change the background color if it is not transparent. And actually we could also play with this here, but then I'm going to view background color equals this, and then if view background color equals to lower case equals transparent, then we should finish the execution of the script at this point. So here I'm just making sure that I'm not transforming the transparent color. So let's get back to our example and let's see what happens now. So the first step was okay. So hopefully I have the new colors, and now let's see the second step. And I still have the problem. I wonder why. So let's move back. So let's see. This should be a transparent color. Maybe I misspelled something. That's usually what happens. Yes, this is the problem, that I didn't call this as a function, but I called, so just to show you that to lowercase returns a native function, and to lowercase returns the characters in lowercase like this. So my issue was that I forgot the brackets, and therefore I wasn't calling the function but referencing the function. So let's try again. So now let's see how the colors are changing. Indeed, now it's working. So you can see that I am transforming the colors, and as I'm transforming the colors, all the colors are transforming. So I'm moving around, and maybe if I would be moving with steps greater than 30 degrees, it would be more visible immediately, but you can see that the color tone of the entire drawing is changing. I wonder why, by the way, the background color doesn't seem to change. So here I have an issue. We need to check what I'm doing. View. I'm most probably doing something wrong here. Excalidraw update scene app state view background dollar. Maybe what we need to do here is we need to await this function. And And let's just make sure background color, this is spelled correctly. Yes, update scene. Oh, this was the issue. I didn't include the view background color variable here. So I was just creating an empty CM object, and that was causing the problem. So now if we undo this a couple of times, hopefully we'll get back to our original colors in a second. Yeah, I think we're back. I think this is the original color scheme. And now I start the transformation. Then the view background, yes, now the view background is transforming. So you can see from the brownish, we change to this greenish setup. And as we move forward, you can see that the colors are changing, the background is changing, as well as all the colors on the scene are transforming. Yes. So I'm not sure that this feature is super useful. I think it is a cool opportunity that you have a drawing and then you can change how it would look if you would move around the color wheel and you get different feels for the same image. And because the colors on the image are complementary colors, therefore, roughly speaking, each of these versions look relatively okay. Anyway, moving on, what I wanted to show you is a couple of additional features, such as mixing colors, for example. So let's imagine that I have here this blue box, for example, and I would like to get a gray in the background that sort of matches this color. So I can use my ColorMaster object, and here we have a couple of functions. We are going to look at the mix function, and then we're also going to look at the harmony function. So let's just look for harmony. Yes, up here. So these are the bits that we are going to still look at. So I can mix two colors, and in this case, let's just take the element from the view. Actually, I need to EA set view active like this, and let me get the element from the view. And I'm going to create the CM object, get CM element background color like this. And I need to get EA.getCM background. Come on. EA get CM like this. And now I can use the CM mix function, and I can mix this with a gray. So I want to mix this blue with, let's mix it with a dark gray, which is a 505050. This is a relatively dark gray color, and I want to mix this in a ratio of mostly, so this is going to be 0.9 gray and 0.1 blue color. So let's just look at the end result. I'm going to convert this to a string hexadecimal like this, and this resulting color is going to be a blue-gray color. You can see it's a blue-gray color. If I want to make this less gray, then I can change the mixing ratio, say to 0.8, and then this color is going to be a more blue gray, or I can increase the ratio, say, to 95, then this color is going to be almost completely gray with only a very slight hint of blue in it. But for example, if you want to create matching grays to your colors, you can use this function. Also, I can take this color and look for the complementar color for this. So you remember from part 2 when we looked at the different color wheels right here, that you have different options for finding matching colors, like the monochromatic scale, the analogous, complementary, split complementary, triadic, etc. approaches. All of these are available as functions in ColorMaster under the Harmonies plugin. So here I can take the complementary color, for example, and I'm just going to copy this example script from here. So if I take my CM object, and let's just see if this is still my blue color, which it should be. So yes, it is my blue color. If I take my CM object and I run this function on it to get the complementary colors, then I get two colors. First, I get the original color, and second, I get the complementar color. So if I paste this in here, then you can see that I have these two colors as complementars of each other. If I only want to if I want to access the complementar color immediately, then I don't need to run the map function. I can just take, so this returns an array of two ColorMaster objects. And if I take the first element of that array and take the string hexadecimal value of it, then I'm going to get the same color. Now this is in hexadecimal representation, not in HSL representation, but you can see you can immediately access the right color. The final bit I wanted to show you is just getting back to this color gradient example. So this gradient now follows the RGB wheel right here. So you can imagine that this is the R, the G, and the B in equal distance from each other. If you want an RYB wheel, then we need to do a bit of a trick, and I want to show you that trick. The trick is going to be that ColorMaster does its calculations in the RGB space, but if you take the hue of the color, then you can actually convert it to how it would look like on the RYB scale. So let me show you the trick. The trick starts with knowing that you can create a color like this as well. So get CM, and I can define the red, for example, 255, the green 0, and the blue 0 value. So I can define the RGB components of a color, and I can get the ColorMaster object like this, and this is now a beautiful red color right here. You see, so that's a red color. But I can also define a color using the RYB scale. So for example, if I define this color where instead of green I have the yellow as the second component, then this is of course going to now be a yellow, because that's how I defined the color. And what I want to show you is if I have a color, for example, I'm going to create a color EA get CM, and I'm going to create the color based on its hue, so based on the rotation around the color wheel. So the hue is going to be, let's say, at 60 degrees. The saturation is going to be 100, and the lightness is going to be 50%. If I create this color, string hexadecimal, if I create this color, let's see what color this is. This should be, oh, this is actually yellow. Yeah, so because the midway between red and green on the RGB scale is yellow, however, on the RYB scale, that should be orange. And so let me show you the trick how to get the orange from this. So I'm going to have my CM object, and I'm creating my CM2 object in the following way: get CM, and I'm going to take the red from CM red, and I'm going to do a trick here. I'm taking the green value, so the green component of the CM value, but I'm submitting it as the yellow component because that's the second one of the three colors. And then the blue is just simply going to be the CM blue like this. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking the color that I defined by a hue, so the position on the color wheel on the RGB scale. I'm simply treating the green as the yellow component, and I created my CM2 object that if I convert to string hexadecimal and we look at it, hopefully this is going to be the orange color, because now in terms of position, I'm calculating this color on the RYB scale simply by switching out or treating the green component of the RGB scale as the Y component on the RYB scale. And with this, I can move a color here on the RGB scale and find its respective color on the RYB scale. So let's turn this into a small script to create the same color gradient but for RYB. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a function. So this is going to be get or convert RGB to RYB. I think that's good enough. The input is going to be the ColorMaster object, and our function is simply going to return this object, and for sake of simplicity, it's going to already return this in a hexadecimal string and return. Let's type it correctly. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking an RGB color and I'm converting it to an RYB color by changing the green component. And so here, if I replace this like this, and I do the same here like this, then if all goes according to plan, this should actually result in an RYB gradient. So let's take a look, and let's move these next to each other like this. And yes, indeed, so here you can see the yellow is where the green was, and the blue stays the same location, and otherwise this is now an RYB color gradient, while this is an RGB color gradient. And the trick I applied was simply switching out the green to the yellow in the representation, and by that, even though ColorMaster calculates on the RGB scale, I can transform that value to the RYB space, and I still get a meaningful color, and I can actually generate the RYB gradient as well. So I hope that by the end I didn't fully lose you. I understand that this became increasingly complex, but I also hope that along the way you saw the power of the ColorMaster library with all these fantastic functions of being just simply able to decide if a color is cool or dark or saturated or tinted or whatever. So there are lots of different functions that you can use to make decisions about the color, as well as I think the mixing and the harmonies are also very powerful functions, and the different representations and being able to change the hue of the colors, as well as using this example of through the Excalidraw API changing app state to change the view background color. You should also be able to work out how you can change the color palette, because the color palette is also part of the app state, and this way you can automatically transform the color palette. So for example, if you want a nice exercise and just learn how the color palette works, then you could take this script that we used to transform the color of this entire drawing and change it such that also the color palette is changed, because right now the color palette stays unchanged, only the colors on the drawing change. But if you use this approach of updating the scene and getting parameters of the app state, you could also read the values in the color palette, and you could actually do your changes to the color palette. So at the end, when you finish the transformation, your color palette will match the colors on the drawing. And I think it can be useful, as well as I think it's just a very helpful exercise in learning to use the ColorMaster object. So hopefully this was not overwhelming. I didn't fully lose you, and I really appreciate you watching until the end. If you have questions, please include in the comments. If you create some useful color management scripts, I would urge you to share them, and if they are such, I'm also happy to publish them in the script library for others to be able to access them as well. Thank you.